All right, so we've done the kind of the cleanup and housekeeping stuff, and now we kind of have a good understanding of why spaces and carriage returns are ignored. We have some basic tags. So now we'll have a web page that looks like this. It's kind of bland. Let's get some more richness to our website. Let's look at how to do color. So in particular, we're going to do the background color of our web page. So to do that, we have these tags, right? There's another piece to tags too, and that is tags can have properties. So here, for instance, we have the body tag. We can set a property within that tag to specify what we want the body to look like. So in this case, the tag we're looking at is BG color, which you should have guessed by now is background color. So we'll do BG color equals, and then you can just pick a color. Go ahead and save it and reload, and you'll see it has changed the background color. And you can change this to, pretty much any color you want. Purple, and it will change to that color. So it's pretty easy. But let's say you really want to narrow down to a specific color, right? Maybe you want a little bit lighter purple or more of a pinkish or more of an orangish color. You want to get more specific. So, and there may not be an actual name for the color you're looking for. So how does this work? This is where we look at what are called hex codes. So what are hex codes? Hex codes are a way of storing color using ones and zeros. And some of you may be thinking back to the first class where we talked about how all computers understand our ones and zeros, and you may be asking yourself, well, how can you store a color with only ones and zeros? So the way that it does this is it stores colors in three sections. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of write it out here. This is not HTML code, but just a visual way of understanding some things. So there are three colors that it uses when you are a source of light, which is different from a painting, right? We talk about the primary colors, right? They're different with a painting than a source of light because a painting is reflecting light, but this is actually a source of light. So if you're a source of light, the three primary colors are red, green, and blue. And you may have seen, the RGB light strips. This is what the RGB stands for. It stands for red, green, and blue. And each of those light strips, if you were to look at it, each light is actually three lights kind of together, and each light, one for red, one for green, and one for blue, the intensity or brightness of that light is changed, and then they mix together. So if you have, the red all the way on and the green and blue all the way off, you're going to get red. If you have blue all the way on and red and green off, you're going to get blue. If you have red and blue on but green off, you're going to get purple. So how does this get stored in a computer? Well, in a computer, it gets stored in a number between 1 and 255, which you may recognize as 8 bits, right? So 8 bits is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? 8 ones or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have 0, 0, 0, 0, 8 of those through 8 ones. That's your number. So you could have 0, 0, 0. That's in between, or you could have that. Any number in between those numbers and including those numbers is valid. This would be 0, and this is the binary of 255. So when you have 8 bits, we talked about how that's 256 combinations of the number between 0 and 255. This is why when we talked about IP addresses, we call each section an octet, because oct means 8, and it's a number between 0 and 255, which is the maximum number you can make with 8 bits. So the way that we do this with colors is we have 3 sections, each of 8 bits. The first specifying how bright the red is, the next specifying how bright the green is, and the last specifying how bright the blue is. So in this case, the number, if we were to put this together as one big binary number, right, this would specify green because the red's all the way off, the green's all the way on, and the blue's all the way on, or the blue's all the way off. So that would specify green. We might do something like this. and that would specify purple because the red's all the way on, the green's all the way off, and the blue's all the way on. We could also do something like this. And this would be, again, purple, but it would be a darker purple because you can see the red and blue are not as much on, right? These would all be ones, but now they're not all ones, so it's a little bit darker of a red and a blue. So it should be a darker purple than the last one. So that's how colors are stored on a computer. Now, how are these stored, how are these referred to in HTML are what are called hex codes. So in binary number systems, right, you have the numbers 0 and 1. So you would go 0, and then 1, and then 10, right, and then 11. And now you can't add any more, right, because you've got them all maxed out. They're all at 1. So we go to another character. And then we keep counting, right, 101, 110, 111. Now we've run out of characters, so we got to add another one, right? And the same thing works with our numbering system. So in our numbering system, we would have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we're out of characters, so we have to add one and then start over. And we keep going, and so on, and then we increment, right? That's how counting works. For color codes, graphics designers use what's called hexadecimal, which is it's not 2 digits, binary. It's not 10 digits, decimal, which is what we use. It's hexadecimal, which is 16 digits. So they take the letters A through F and they substitute those in for the numbers 11 or 10 through 15. So you would have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But instead of 10, you would put an A. 10, and then 11, and then 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now we're out of digits, right? So we continue the pattern. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and so on. So in hexadecimal, you don't need to memorize all this stuff, right? But in hexadecimal, the numbers for 0 to 255 would be 00 through FF. So FF is 255 in hexadecimal. And as you can see, after FF, you would need another digit, so you'd have, that would be 256, right? So the numbers 0 through FF are what's there. So there's a much easier way to get at these, but just to understand what we're typing in, right? When we type in a hex code, we're typing in values for how much red, how much green, and how much blue, but we're not typing it in binary, and we're not typing it in decimal, which, might be something like full red, no green, no blue, right? That would make a lot of sense to us. Instead, we're typing in hexadecimal, which would be FF00, or specified, you just put a pound symbol or a hashtag in front of it, right? That specifies that it's a hex code coming, FF0000. So we allow 2 digits for each color, and so you can kind of, parse through in your head what is. So that would be red. If we wanted to do blue, we would do 0000FF. So to show how this works now, we're going to come up here. And so that you can do this, so you can do body BG color equals pound 0000FF. And if you do that and save it, you'll see that the background is changed to blue. So this is the way those color codes work within your code. We'll see when we get to CSS later on that Visual Studio Code will make this even easier for us. But if you really want to get a hex code, a much easier way to do this, if you go to Google, hey, you can misspell Google and it will work. If you go to Google and search for HTML color picker, it'll give you a little color picker where you can pick the color. So this is what the color would look like, and you can find the exact color you want, And if you look down here, you'll see this is the red, green, and blue. How much red, how much green, and how much blue is in this, which makes sense, right? This is kind of a pinkish purplish color, so you'd expect more red and blue and not as much green there. So it makes sense. And then this is the hex code, right? You don't need to be able to look at that hex code and know what it is as far as how much red, green, and blue are there, but at least now you can look at this and know what those numbers mean and those letters mean. It's not some sort of crazy weird code. It actually makes some sense. So if you like a color in here, I don't know, we can come in here and pick like a weird green color again. Green is really high, a little blue, and then almost no red, so it kind of makes sense. We're going to go ahead and copy this. You can just hit copy, and you can paste it right into your HTML file, and it'll change the background for you. So you can get those colors really easy. The whole part of that exercise, the whole point of going through it, was so you would understand what that code means. Because it's one thing to just type it in, but if you really want understanding, which is what we're going for here, it's good to understand the why and the what's actually going on under the hood. So this is how we do and change background colors in our code, and you can use a straight name of a color, or you can use a hex code directly. And if you use hex codes, just keep in mind, graphics designers know what this means. If you talk to any graphics designer and mention a hex code, they'll know what it means. So now you know what it means as well.